Welcome to my channel, your go-to channel, for uncovering the untold stories of global geopolitics. Today, we're diving into a hidden chapter of U.S. South Korea relations, one that involves exploitation, racial tension, and the human cost of military alliances. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. The year was 1953. The Korean War had ended, leaving a nation divided and scarred. The U.S. military has been a constant presence in South Korea since the Korean War, with nearly 30,000 troops still stationed there today. This alliance casts a long, dark shadow filled with untold stories of exploitation and racial tension. This is the hidden chapter, the dark side of the U.S. military presence in South Korea. Beneath the surface of this strategic alliance lies a darker story, one that involves the exploitation of South Korean women and racial discrimination that has left scars on both nations. The official narrative speaks of shared sacrifice and partnership, but beneath lies a history of pain and injustice. This essay delves into the uncomfortable truths, focusing on the exploitation of women in military camptowns. The Korean War ended, but for many Korean women, the nightmare was just beginning. With the influx of American soldiers came the emergence of camptowns hubs for prostitution. These camptowns, sanctioned by both the U.S. military and the South Korean government, served as sites of systematic exploitation. Young women, often from impoverished backgrounds, were lured or coerced into the sex trade. Despite prostitution being illegal since 1948, it became an institutionalized part of life around U.S. military bases, especially in camptowns. Women were often forced into this trade, serving U.S. soldiers in an arrangement that was tacitly accepted by both governments. This dark aspect of Korean-American relations has been largely ignored in mainstream narratives. They were trapped in a system that treated them as commodities, their bodies sacrificed for military morale. These women endured horrific conditions, facing violence, disease, and social stigma. Their experiences are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but also a stark reminder of the urgent need for justice and reconciliation. The sex trade that flourished around U.S. military bases in South Korea was not merely a tragic consequence of war. It became an integral part of the country's post-war economic recovery. By 2007, the sex trade in South Korea was estimated to be worth 14 trillion won, about $13 billion, accounting for roughly 1.6% of the nation's GDP. This staggering figure highlights the extent to which this illicit industry has been embedded in the fabric of South Korean society, with devastating consequences for the women involved. The influx of American dollars, channeled through the bodies of these women, helped to fuel South Korea's economic growth. This uncomfortable truth highlights the complex and often hypocritical relationship between economic prosperity and human exploitation. The South Korean government, desperate for economic stability, turned a blind eye to the rampant prostitution in camptowns. They saw the sex trade as a necessary evil, a means to an end. This economic dependence on the exploitation of women further marginalized the victims, silencing their voices and perpetuating the cycle of abuse. The economic benefits of the sex trade came at a steep price. The social fabric of South Korean society was torn, the dignity of countless women sacrificed for the sake of economic growth. This dark chapter in South Korea's history serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing economic growth over human rights and dignity. The exploitation of Korean women in camptowns was not merely a gender issue, it was also inextricably linked to the racial dynamics within the U.S. military. The presence of numerous American soldiers, coupled with existing racial prejudices and a power imbalance inherent in the U.S. ROK Alliance, created a volatile environment. Racial tensions, simmering beneath the surface, erupted in a series of violent incidents. One such incident, the 1971 riot in Korea-do, stands as a stark example of the underlying racial tensions. Korean sex workers, protesting their ill treatment and demanding better working conditions, clashed with American GIs. Simmering racial tensions within the U.S. military exploded when black soldiers rioted against discrimination near Camp Humphreys. The response from both American and South Korean authorities was swift and brutal, but the incident also exposed deep-seated prejudices within the military and the sex trade, where black soldiers were often denied services or treated with contempt. The riot, fueled by anger, frustration, and years of pent-up resentment, resulted in injuries and arrests. This event, largely ignored in official accounts of U.S. ROK Relations, exposed the deep-seated racial prejudices that permeated the U.S. military presence in South Korea. It highlighted the vulnerability of Korean women, caught between a system that exploited them and a military force that viewed them as inferior. Voices from the shadows, personal stories of exploitation and resilience. Behind the statistics and historical accounts lie the deeply personal stories of the women who endured the horrors of Camptown prostitution. These are stories of trauma, resilience, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. One such story is that of Chun-ja, who was only 15 years old when she was tricked into working in a Camptown. She endured years of abuse, violence, and forced abortions, her body treated as a commodity to be bought and sold. Another survivor, Kyung-ae, speaks of the shame and stigma that followed her long after she escaped the clutches of Camptown life. These women, and countless others like them, carry the scars of their experiences, both physical and emotional. Their stories are a testament to the indomitable human spirit, but also a stark reminder of the profound injustice they suffered. These personal accounts humanize the issue, forcing us to confront the real-life consequences of the decisions made by those in power. The enduring stain, a blemish on U.S. ROK relations. The exploitation of Korean women in Camptowns is not a footnote in history, it is an enduring stain on U.S. ROK relations. The issue, often swept under the rug in the name of political expediency, continues to cast a shadow over the alliance. It serves as a constant reminder of the power imbalances, the hypocrisy, and the unaddressed injustices that have characterized this relationship. The silence surrounding this issue for decades speaks volumes. The U.S. government for years denied any responsibility, while the South Korean government prioritized maintaining its alliance with the United States over seeking justice for its own citizens. This lack of accountability has created a deep sense of resentment and mistrust. The enduring legacy of Camptown prostitution continues to fuel anti-American sentiment in South Korea, particularly among activists and the younger generation. It serves as a barrier to true reconciliation and a reminder of the urgent need for acknowledgement, apology, and reparations. The US and South Korean governments must confront this dark chapter in their shared history. Societal scars, modern-day repercussions. The legacy of Camptown prostitution is not confined to the past. It continues to have a profound impact on South Korean society today. The social stigma associated with prostitution continues to haunt survivors and their families. Many women, silenced by shame and fear, still suffer in silence, unable to access the support and justice they deserve. The issue of Camptown prostitution also sheds light on the deeply ingrained patriarchal structures within South Korean society. These structures, which often place women in subordinate roles, contributed to the vulnerability of these women and continue to hinder efforts to achieve gender equality. The exploitation of women in Camptowns has also left a lasting impact on the perception of U.S. soldiers and the U.S. ROK alliance. It has fueled anti-American sentiment and created a sense of distrust that continues to affect relations between the two countries. Military dynamics, racial tensions and power imbalances. The exploitation of Korean women in Camptowns cannot be separated from the racial tensions and power imbalances inherent in the U.S. military presence in South Korea. The U.S. military, with its history of racial segregation and discrimination, brought these prejudices to Korea, creating a climate where the exploitation of Korean women was seen as acceptable. The power dynamics between the U.S. military and the local population created a situation where Korean women were particularly vulnerable. The military's economic and political influence often silenced those who dared to speak out against the exploitation occurring within the Camptowns. These power imbalances continue to influence the relationship between U.S. soldiers and the local population. While efforts have been made to address racial sensitivity and prevent exploitation, the legacy of the past continues to cast a long shadow. Addressing these issues requires a fundamental shift in the way the U.S. military operates abroad. It requires acknowledging the historical context of racial injustice and implementing concrete measures to prevent exploitation. Promoting respectful relationships between soldiers and the local population is essential. Justice and reconciliation, a long and winding road. The journey towards justice and reconciliation for the victims of Camptown prostitution has been long and arduous. For decades, their voices were silenced, their stories ignored. However, in recent years, there has been a growing movement demanding recognition, apology, and reparations. Survivors, finding strength in solidarity, have come forward to share their stories, breaking the silence and demanding justice. Their courage has inspired others to speak out and has forced the governments of both South Korea and the United States to confront this dark chapter in their shared history. While some progress has been made, the road to justice is far from over. The pursuit of justice for the victims of Camptown prostitution is not just about righting past wrongs, it's about creating a more just and equitable future. Learning from the past, a call for recognition and reparation. The story of Camptown prostitution in South Korea is a stark reminder of the human cost of war and the enduring legacy of exploitation. It is a story that demands to be told, not to shame or blame, but to learn from the past and create a more just and equitable future. Recognizing the injustices of the past is the first step towards healing and reconciliation. The US and South Korean governments must acknowledge their roles in perpetuating this system of exploitation and offer a sincere apology to the survivors. This apology must be accompanied by meaningful reparations that acknowledge the suffering endured by these women. Beyond apologies and reparations, it is crucial to address the systemic issues that allowed such exploitation to occur. This includes tackling gender inequality, combating racial prejudice, and ensuring that the rights of all individuals are respected. Honoring their stories, shaping a just future. The US military presence in South Korea is a complex tapestry of alliance, sacrifice, and exploitation. The stories of women in Camptown prostitution remind us of the human cost of war. Their stories demand to be heard. They challenge us to confront power, inequality, and historical injustices. Honoring these stories means more than remembering their suffering. It means learning, amplifying voices, and dismantling unjust systems. A just future requires collective effort. Let us honor these stories by shaping a future where their experiences are never repeated. This dark chapter in U.S. South Korea relations teaches us important lessons about the hidden costs of military alliances. It's a reminder that the stories of those who suffered in silence must not be forgotten. The past cannot be changed, but we can strive to build a future based on mutual respect and understanding. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of global geopolitics. Let's keep these important conversations going.